So today we are going to discuss the movie Parasite. So let's look at the setting first. The film Parasite is set in modern-day Korea and follows the journey of a poor family as they con their way into an affluent household. A noteworthy feature of the setting of this film is the rich family's home. The set for the house was actually built from the ground up for the filming of this movie. This is because the director aimed to have the house serve as a universe within the film. The rooms in the house weren't only designed to show the affluence of the Park family, but to also serve as separate spaces to focus on certain characters as they take over and infiltrate these spaces, much like a parasite would, dividing and conquering as a team. The placements of the houses shown in this movie are intentional as well. The rich family's home is elevated, whereas we see the poorer families living lower and closer to the streets, and even underground. This is to mirror the way that social status and wealth can both literally and figuratively elevate someone. Finding the materials to create each setting took quite some time, but ultimately it seems to have paid off in a way that each setting has purpose and meaning.
This film was directed by Bong Joon-ho, and I think he did a fantastic job in all aspects of the visual storytelling. One thing I found really interesting about the cinematography was how the two families were filmed differently. So in the film, when showing the Park family and their home, we see lots of wide shots. This is done to emphasize the size of the house and all the space they have, and in a way that, to me, represents their freedom. And they get that as a result of being well off. In contrast, the Kim's house, we see most shots are close-ups on the family, and they are usually sitting at their kitchen table. I feel like that represents their confinement due to the hold that their financial status has on them. But then, the Kims start to see the benefits of their cons and their new lives, quote unquote, and the camera becomes less confined, focusing less on just the family and more on elements of their home that we didn't necessarily get to see in the first half. So I think that it's really subtle, but I think it speaks to the theme of class division perfectly, and I think that it even shows a shift in the psyche of the Kim's family when they started to feel like, they were a part of the upper class. Their surroundings reflected that, even though they were still living in the same home that they had been this whole time.
Just like many K-dramas, the script and dialogue is very slow-moving, allowing each character and their traits to be developed. The Kim family, living in a semi-basement where a drunkard pees in front of their window frequently, seems content with the life they're living. With each of the members being unemployed, they don't seem too in a rush to make things better for themselves, as they can't even get their own Wi-Fi or tell the man in the window to stop peeing. As each family member is introduced to the Park house, they begin to wholeheartedly play the role of who they're pretending to be. Ki-woo realizes his only way in is to get close to Da-hyun, like Min did. He gains Young-kyo's trust and interest by his work ethic towards her and taking interest in her son, Da-sung. Ki-jung, as an art therapist, commands the room and tells everyone when to come and go. Her character in the house reflects her character outside the home, taking charge and striking when the opportunity comes. Crossing a line is brought up frequently by Mr. Park, and to the end, he's still a mystery as we wonder if he truly loves his wife or not. Just like the first driver, Mr. Kim is not allowed to cross the line into the back seat, but his smell does. That disgust he feels from Mr. Kim's scent is what ultimately gets him killed. The scene where Mr. and Mrs. Kim are trying to stop the bleeding from Ki-jung's chest, and Mr. Park and Young-kyo can only tell him to hurry up and pass the keys. And as he looks around, he realizes no one cares for or about them. And Mr. Park is disgusted by Gun-se's smell when retrieving the keys. It shows how, in their upper-class society and eyes, the quote-unquote help isn't worth consideration and will never be equal to them. I think the best acting came from Gun-se. Him being trapped in the basement for 4 years and being comfortable down there showed how much the isolation has become such a comfort for him from the real world. When Moon Gwang dies from her concussion, His repeated head slam on the lights to send a help me Morse code signal for his wife was heart-wrenching. His emergence from the basement looking like a scary ghost with blood all over his face re-traumatized Da-sung and honestly the audience. The letter/monologue from Mr. Kim and Ki-woo's monologue at the end shows how the family was never able to cross the line and gain the wealth they were so greedy for. Just like Gunse, who was running from loan sharks and had to go into hiding, Mr. Kim goes into hiding from his murder charges and doesn't get to send his daughter off in his rage and escape. However, he makes up for it by giving Moon-gwang a proper burial. Almost everything comes full circle within this script, especially the ending, where Ki-woo and his mother are right back in the house where the film started and have not made any progressive steps. It shows that no matter how hard you try to climb that social ladder, you can never cross the line.
As we've mentioned before in previous episodes, the costumes make the scene and really set the tone, and this was well understood by the Parasite team. In this film, the costumes express differences in the class of the different characters. You see with the Parks family, they wear very modern and elegant clothing, which is vastly different with the clothing worn by the Kim's family. With the Kim's family, you can see the clothing is some parts faded and not even necessarily clothes only suited for being in the home, but also outside. So it's kind of a play on their cultural norm based on their economic social class. Whereas you see with the Parks family, there's a huge difference between the clothing worn in the home versus outside. In addition, the clothing changed with their opportunity as well. We notice a huge difference in the clothing worn by the Kim's family before and after they got a job. Additionally, it's really just so funny how, the costumes tell a lot about a scene before the dialogue even starts, a lot like the feeling that music gives. And I generally just think it just added more emotion to the thriller and really allowed the audience to feel the powerful theme of the movie. It was simple and really didn't take away from what was already going on, but it was definitely effective. What about you guys? What do you guys think?
Those were some very interesting points, Beyonce, and I also think that another important topic to discuss about this movie is the cultural context. Honestly, this aspect of the movie, I see it related to every other part of the movie because the cultural context really framed the entire plot of the movie. Parasite explores and reflects the current social and economic climate of South Korea. Today, in the 21st century, is when this movie is set, and it reflects the enormous gap between the ultra-wealthy and poor. The highest earners in South Korea make up only 1 to 1.3% of the total population, revealing the extremely unequal distribution of wealth. On the flip side, low-income earners make up around 40% of the labor force. So we can see this really unequal distribution, and I think Parasite did a really good job at portraying these two polarities with the very rich family and the poor family. Just a little bit about South Korea's economy. They have a free market economy, and this allows private companies to self-regulate and operate autonomously. So this has contributed to the wealth gap, as private companies owned by the 1% are allowed to operate freely. This is why we see such an enormous gap and the rich family doing so much better than those who are poor. The name Parasite was chosen quite intentionally, as it speaks to the family in the movie's need to leech on the rich family in order to survive and improve their quality of life. The movie also reflected the cultural climate of low-income people viewing the rich as gullible and easy to take advantage of. There's a lot of resentment as well towards the wealthy, as they're seen as superior to the lower income/lower class. This can be quite literally shown through the placement of the rich house on a hill, representing that they were above the lower class family who lived in a basement at the very bottom of the hill, showing that it literally can't get any lower than the poor family in this movie. So Parasite definitely did a great job at reflecting the current cultural climate surrounding wealth, income and class, and we saw the clashes between both the rich and the poor be represented in how the movie was ended in such a violent manner. It was almost as if it was a war or a battle between the rich and the poor in South Korea.